up, nerds? My name is Leslie Smith, and welcome back to the Nerdy Narrative. On this channel, I like to talk with you about all of the things that I read. I read in many different genres: science fiction, fantasy, horror, manga, comics, nonfiction, literary fiction, classics, short stories. You may even find a poetry collection or two. Today is Friday, and that means it is time for my weekly reading update. This is the one I use to update you on any announcements I have for the channel. I show you any book mail that I've received in the week, tell you about what I read, what I'm still reading, and what I plan to read next. So let's get started and slide into our announcements. So if you missed it on Wednesday night over on the channel Dark Between Pages, Nikki and a few other booktubers, including yours truly, we got to talk to Michael Clark, who is the author of my favorite haunted house trilogy, The Patience of a Dead Man. I will have that link in the description box down below, as well as in the cards for you, so you can check that out. I absolutely love Michael Clark. We had such a fantastic time. So if you have read this book because you've been hearing me gush about it over the last year, check that live stream out and get to know Michael a little bit more. Last night, if you missed it, there was a live stream here on the Nerdy Narrative channel with me and my friends from the Codex Cantina, Una and Crypto, where we discussed Wise Blood by Flannery O'Connor. It's always a good time with those two. It was a fantastic discussion. You know, books like these are so fun to talk about with your friends. It just opens up all manner of discussion. While you all may reach the same conclusion, you might not have all taken the same path getting there. Finally, on June 14th, I will be in a live stream talking about Betty by Tiffany McDaniel over on the channel Kelly Hooked on Books. I'm going to have Kelly's channel linked below. I'll be joining Kelly and a panel of booktubers to discuss this book, which was Kelly's book club pick for the month of May. I can't wait. This book was really good, really tragic, so it's going to be interesting hearing everyone's take and how they responded to all the things that happened in this book. So again, her channel is going to be linked in the description box down below. So now let's dip into what all I read this week. And y'all, I've been coming out swinging reading some books because it's the Shelf Space Summer Readathon, the Olympic Readathon, and I really knuckled down to try and get some books read. The first book that I knocked out this week, I read on my Kindle. That is The Haunted Forest Tour by Jeff Strand and James Moore, and this book was a trip and a half. It's a horror story, lots of gore, but what most attracted me to it is all of the humor that I'm told was probably provided by Jeff Strand. Apparently he writes a lot of books and it's a lot of horror with comedy involved, so I am definitely going to be reading a lot more of Jeff Strand. It was a very fun read. I did have some issues with it, but the enjoyment factor, the gallows humor that had me cracking up, it just kept propelling me through this book because I just couldn't get enough. My next completed read is a graphic novel put out by Image Comics, Hack and Slash Volume 1 by Tim Seeley and Stefano Caselli. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I will 100% continue the series. I kind of had a taste of their work. They did a crossover with Nailbiter that I really enjoyed. Love the premise. It is a total slasher, which I should have known I was going to enjoy just based off how much I love Stephen Graham Jones, who also loves slashers and likes to read slashers. Which, talking about Stephen Graham Jones, I didn't get any book mail this week, but I did get a really nice coffee mug. Look at that. In Stephen Graham Jones we trust. And it's got the antler from the Only Good Indians on there. And then, of course, on the back, the most important message, but first, coffee. This was a gift to me by my friend Lana from the channel Lore and Lullabies. I'm helping her with the India Chords Readathon that's happening in the month of July, and she sent me a little happy, which, if you haven't watched my announcement video about the India Chords, I'll have it in the cards and in the description box down below, so check that out. It's an indie-based readathon, which I'm really excited for. But Hack and Slash, loved it, will be continuing this series 100%. I'm not sure if it's complete. I do know there are other volumes out, so I'm going to be getting my hands on those. The next book that I completed last week is the second book in the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy, Greater Good by Timothy Zahn. I was underwhelmed. The first book in this series, Chaos Rising, was so good. I could not read that book fast enough. Absolutely loved it. This one, it's hard to describe what it was that I didn't like. It still had Thrawn doing Thrawn things, but I think what fascinated me so much about the first one had more of Thrawn studying culture and art of a people and determining tactics. There was not a lot of that in this one. There was one particular scene I remember, but I think this one focused on a particular occurrence. I think it was setting something up for the final book. So this one suffers from what I call middle book syndrome. It did carry the plot forward a bit. It did introduce some other characters. We're still not sure who the bad guys are that's orchestrating all of this against the Chiss. But we got a few more puzzle pieces, a little more political maneuvering, but I was expecting so much more, and it could be I was a victim of my own high expectations. I'm waiting to hear what Una and Crypto think of it. This was a buddy read between the three of us. They're still working on it, and then my friend Brian was also supposed to start it the other day. So I'm going to talk to them after they finish, but from what I've seen, this one has not been very well received so far. I also completed a couple of short stories by Clarice Lispector, which are included in her complete stories collection that I have. The two that I read are A Chicken. I don't know if Clarice Lispector meant for it to be a comedy, but that is exactly how I interpreted it. It was really funny. It had a really funny message behind it. So that one I really enjoyed, and the other one that I read is called Daydream and Drunkenness of a Young Lady, which I also enjoyed, but a completely different tone. That one is definitely on the more serious side, more introspective. I'm still ruminating in my thoughts about it. I don't think I fully understand what the author was trying to convey, what message or theme. The final book that I completed this week is Voice of War by Zach Argyle, and it's his first book in his Threadlight series. Book 2 is already out, which is on Kindle Unlimited, so I've already got it. The first book, Voices of War, I listened to the majority of it on Audible, but I also followed along on my Kindle when I could, because I was delighted to find that the first book and the second one are included in my Kindle Unlimited subscription, and I love immersive reading. The audiobook narrator, Adam Gold, is amazing. He did a wonderful job, a fantastic job. I can't wait to listen to more audiobooks by this guy. He even did the female voice as well. But this one was a fantastic story. It was way better than I thought it was going to be. I had no idea how intricate this plot was going to be. And it was wonderful because not all of the plot points were introduced at once. They were introduced a little bit at a time, which just made it easily digestible and easy to keep up with. Sometimes authors will throw everything out there at once, all of the threads you're going to be following, and that can be confusing, especially if you start out a book that way. But I love that we get a few characters and a plot line, go down, and then we meet a few characters more and maybe a different plot line. This book just kept surprising me. I really loved the character work. The world building was just amazing. The magic system was fantastic and unique. There's literally nothing about this book I didn't like. And normally when I say that, I follow it by saying, except the next book isn't out in the series. But in this case, book 2 is out. I've already downloaded it. I don't know if I'll have time to get to it this month because of the Olympic Readathon and my other reads that I chose. But it's definitely going to be happening very soon. Because the one thing that kind of detracted a little bit for me is one of the characters is just like another character that I read about in the first Law trilogy. And they were so similar that it kind of kept stopping me at any time I read about that character. So my hope is in book 2, we're going to get more information on that particular character. And I am hoping beyond all hope that Zach does something really cool with that character, because if he does, that's going to 100% increase my enjoyment of Voices of War, and for the series as a whole. And I really feel positive that that is exactly what he's going to do, because the rest of this book is 100% his own original creation. I absolutely enjoyed it. We even got an animal companion, and you just can't go wrong. Like, all of the boxes were checked for a great fantasy read with this one. Now, before we get into what I am still reading, I have to share a DNF. And it is so unfortunate, but I just couldn't stick with it. And the book that I DNF'd is A Drowned Kingdom by P.L. Stewart. This is an ARC I received from the author in exchange for an honest review. Whenever I agree to accept a book from an author to read and review, I'm very careful, I'm very selective in making sure I choose something that I really think I'm going to enjoy, because I want to be able to give it a glowing review. The book description for this one sounded right up my alley, but unfortunately, I just couldn't connect to it in order to stick with it. At first, I thought it was because I was reading a PDF file on my Kindle. While it is an ARC that I received, the book has already been published, so I just went in on my Kindle and purchased the ebook because I thought the PDF file was interfering with my enjoyment of the book, and it was, but I hate the main character. Do not like him at all, and the writing was beautiful, but it was a little bit old-fashioned, but it's not what I would call an easy flow. That type of writing style slows me down a lot when I'm reading it, and if I'm not enjoying what I'm reading on top of that, it just really doesn't work. So I decided I'm just gonna soft DNF it for now and put it down, come back to it later, because it could just be I'm not in the mood for this type of book right now, and I may very well find myself in a couple months picking it up and absolutely being in love with it. Moving over into what I am still reading. I am still working on this big honkin' joker, the Omnibus Volume 2 of the Jeff Johns Arc of the Green Lantern. This is a buddy read with Ramsey from Rajathan and Una and Crypto from the Codex Cantina. I am cranking through this one. It's really good. I have reached the point where all of the lights of the different corps have been introduced. A huge war has broken out. The Black Lanterns are scary. I just absolutely don't know how this is going to end. I'm excited to get there. This has been a thoroughly enjoyable reading experience for me as far as comics. In my opinion, it was a great place to start in the DC universe, especially because the Justice League is pretty heavily involved with the happenings that the Green Lanterns are in as well. So that's always fun. I think for someone like me who maybe didn't read the comics, but they've grown up watching all of the shows on the CW, all the movies, you have a really good working knowledge of a lot of these characters that are in this one. So I didn't feel lost at all. Everything is explained really well. So I think this was a very wise choice to start with the Green Lantern comic series. The next book that I started this week that I'm still working on is Hitting a Straight Lick with a Crooked Stick, which is a collection of short stories by Zora Neale Hurston. When I started this collection, my plan was I'm going to read one short story a day. That is not the case. Zora Neale Hurston is a genius when it comes to writing. I literally think she is my favorite classic literary fiction author. She is definitely in my top 10 favorite authors of all time. Might even be top 5. I am just eating these stories up. Every time I read one, I decide that that is my favorite one until I read the next one. And they're so beautiful. They're so different. And just the emotion that this woman can evoke. And it's not even the same emotion. One story may be heartwarming. One story may reach out and pull compassion to the forefront. The next one, indescribable sadness, yearning, hope. I just cannot get enough of this woman's writing. This story, this collection is absolutely beautiful, and I will probably finish it in the next couple of days. It is phenomenal. Highly recommend anything by Zora Neale Hurston. I haven't read it all yet. I have most of it sitting back there on my shelf to get to. Evie from She Was Only Evie, she and I are doing kind of an unofficial read-along where we are working through Zora Neale Hurston's works along with Stephen Graham Jones, and we're alternating these two authors every other month. Guys, Zora Neale Hurston, she's amazing. She is not talked about enough. We need to change that. My final new read that I started this week has got me back on the path of the beam in my search for The Dark Tower. Let's see, I am only about 120 pages in. I have already had some heart-pounding moments. I am afraid. I'm very afraid. There have been a couple of revelations about a beloved character that have me extremely concerned. I'm almost scared to read and find out, but then I also am dying to read to find out. So we've covered what I've read, what I'm still reading. Let's talk about what I'm going to stick my nose into next. I fully expect to finish the Green Lantern omnibus in the next 3 or 4 days, and I know I'll finish Zora Neale Hurston's short story collection today or tomorrow. So my next read that I'm going to jump into is going to be The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin, which is book 2 in her Broken Earth trilogy. I read the 5th season last month. It was amazing. The ending was killer. I wouldn't describe it as a cliffhanger. Like, it didn't leave something undone to kind of hack you off that it ended that way, but it ended in such a way that I am very, very much looking forward to finding out what is going to happen next. I am very excited to get into book 2. Now, the first book was a very, very fast read. I expect this one will be as well. It's 400 pages. I bet I can knock this one out in the next week. And if that's the case, then I will be going right into East of Eden by John Steinbeck. This is part of a read-along that's going to be hosted in the Literary Discourse Discord server. I will have that linked below. This is a retelling of the book of Genesis. It sounds very, very interesting. I can't wait to read it. I love retellings. I've read several fictional retellings of the books of the Bible. I've enjoyed every single one of them. I fully intend to enjoy this one. So many of you have commented on past videos where I mentioned getting this one and said that you loved it. I can't wait to share that experience with you. So really looking forward to getting my nose planted firmly in this one in the coming days. And that will wrap up the really busy week of reading that I had. It was the first full week of the Shelf Space Olympic Readathon. Team Athena is doing amazing. We ended up finishing in the top 3 for week 1 on the scoreboard. I couldn't be more proud. My team is awesome. Everyone has just been chatting and encouraging one another in team chat. It just couldn't be better, except at the end of the month when we beat Team Zeus. With that, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up so I can get back to reading to get up as many points as possible for week 2. Guys, thank you so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button to let me know that you enjoyed it. On your way down to the comments to tell me what you're reading this week that you enjoy. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already so you don't miss any future videos. I hope your morning has started out well. I hope the rest of your day is absolutely fantastic. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.